said, do not forget us when you go to Iraq. And that's exactly what we did. We forgot pretty much about Afghanistan. We're still there. We'll be there forever, right? And we're in Iraq. And I said this, didn't I? You heard it on this program, didn't you? That we were going to be stuck in Iraq forever and stuck in the region forever. And everybody's waving the flag and saying the war's over. Well, and it's not over. Saddam Hussein's gone, or doesn't matter whether he's gone or where he is, or do we need to find him, or has anybody even talked about that lately? Have you heard on the news? Is anybody saying we're looking for Saddam Hussein? I don't even hear that, do you? And I was speaking with some folks. We were talking about what was going on over there in the Middle East, and I says, this is the hard reality that they're not just coming out and saying, and I'm not making this up. This is not my opinion. This is not my opinion. This is what Osama bin Laden wants. This is what Al-Qaeda wants. This is what the Palestinians want. I mean, isn't it so simple? Let's just make it real simple. They want Palestine back. You got a Bible in your hotel room where you're staying for your 3-day weekend? Go grab it. Go to the back of your Bible right now, class. Give you a couple of minutes to go find your Bible and dust it off. You haven't looked at it in a while, have you? Now look in the back of your Bible, and they show ancient maps. And look at how big Palestine is. This is the sad reality of the situation. That what Osama bin Laden really wants and Al-Qaeda really, it's real simple. It's just something I had to get off my chest. Look at the biblical map and look how big Palestine is. Here's what they want. They want us to pull our support for Israel. They want us to stop supporting Israel. They want us to stop giving Israel money. They want us out of the region. They want the heathen infidel Christians off sacred Muslim soil. And they want Palestine restored. Look at your Bible map. It ain't going to happen. Are we safer now that we've gone into Iraq and Afghanistan? It's pretty obvious that if the terrorists want to strike, they're still going to strike. Is there anything we can possibly do to make ourselves feel safer? Or do we just wait our turn? Is that what we're doing? They say it's inevitable we're going to get attacked again. Inevitable. The government is telling us we will be attacked again. So don't be all that shocked when it happens, because they're saying it right now. It will happen again. So apparently there's nothing we can do but sit around and wait our turn. Or what? Stay out of New York City or Chicago, or I don't know about that. But that's the only solution. And I don't know about wiping out all of Al-Qaeda, and I suppose we're going to try. And I thought, boy, this is interesting, isn't it? Because I wonder if folks sat around during World War II and thought, oh my God, look at what we got ourselves into, and we'll never get out of it, and the whole world's at war. Well, if you look at how many countries there are that are involved in terror, and how many organizations there are around the world, this is a world war, the war on terror. It's all over the world, and I don't know if we can win it. Just had to get this thought out that that's the only way that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda will be happy and the Palestinians will be happy is if we pull our support for Israel and get out of the region. And it ain't going to happen, is it? Okay, here we are in Vegas. What's the odds the U.S. is going to stop supporting Israel? Ain't going to happen. And then they say, well, it'd be a safer Israel if Yasser Arafat weren't there. What? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't today the first mention you've heard of Yasser Arafat in forever? He's completely ineffective. He's just some old guy. The people I don't think the Palestinians even look at him as a leader anymore because he didn't get the job done. So you know what that means? You know what they're doing by keeping Yasser Arafat in his office? They're saving his life. Because as soon as they say, okay, Yasser, you're free to go, bang, he's dead. He's a dead man. It's a death sentence. You want to kill Yasser Arafat? You want to kill Yasser? All you got to do is say, you're a free man, have a nice day. And that's the truth. And I sit around and think, gee, we have this plan but it doesn't seem to entirely be working. Isn't it a little frustrating? Am I the only one that sits there and is a little frustrated and says, geez, do we... And that's the question you heard here on this program before we went to Iraq. Do we know what we're doing? Do we have an exit plan? I guess I should have been hammering, did we have an exit plan in Afghanistan? We're still there. And everybody's forgotten about that one. Oh, Rick, come on. Can't you talk about some new news? Think about all the troops that are still there. And they'll be in rotation where they stay 6 months, and then they're replaced by other ones that'll stay another 6 months. I mean, did anybody consider that when we went to war in Vietnam that it was going to last that long? No, we're not sending troops over there. They're just on a fact-finding mission. In 1962. Well, the United States has a funny way of dragging things out. And we're not very good at nation building, are we? Look around at other places we get involved with around the world, and we're just not that good at nation building. I guess we have the best of intentions, or do we? Maybe our intention is just what I've been saying all along, was that we went to Iraq to try and control the oil. And where does it end? Do we have to take over every country over there? Every country except Israel? We have to go in there and clean them out? Is that the solution? Because like I said, yeah, in a pig's eye, yeah, we're going to pull our support for Israel. It ain't going to happen. I guess I don't entirely understand why we apparently alone are the only country that has to stick up for Israel and support them and give them tons of money. I don't get it. I don't know. Then people say, well, harumph. The Jews control everything. Don't you know that? They control the media. They control this. They control... No, that can't be proven. That cannot be proven either. So I don't know why it lies on our shoulders, and I guess that's part of the job. It looks to me like that's part of the job description. Part of the job description is if we're gonna stick up for Israel, then we get lumped in just like they do. How often have we heard about terrorist attacks in Israel? Forever and ever and ever and ever. And have they stopped? No, we still hear about them every day. I would think that they're fairly careful, aren't they? Israel's not very big compared with the U.S. And I know they certainly do a nice job of trying to make sure their planes don't get hijacked, because they haven't had one hijacked since 1968. Because you have to go through a little tube, and 3 different people look through everything you have and frisk you and all that. And of course, it's in their better interest to do so, right? Because they fly on the plane. So if the plane gets hijacked and goes down, they're dead, so they're concerned about themselves. I'm sure they're concerned about you and their paycheck, too, and I don't know what order. But that's what we have to look forward to, I guess, apparently. Apparently, I guess there's a segment of this, a part of it that I don't understand. Perhaps you can help clear it up in my mind. I just don't get it. I just don't understand how world leaders can sit around and we're just like human beings in some sort of twisted ant farm. People don't like each other. Have you noticed that? People just don't care for each other. It's like, where was that? Was that down south where they had the all-white prom and the all-black prom? And some of the white kids went to the all-black prom. They said, well, some of the white kids went there because I guess the white prom was 50 miles away or some such thing. But it's just like when you have conversations with people, older folks who say, I remember when there was just a black community. There was just the black community. You went to the black butcher, you went to your black barber, you went to your black used car salesman, you went to your black insurance man, you went to the black grocery store. And the black community survived on its own as the black community, and that was that. And the white community had its own white community. At some point, it became horribly racist for the white community to have a white community, and then to feel better about themselves, they forced black people and white people to get along, even if they didn't want to. I guess the social engineering in the end result will work out for the best. I look at it this way. In a couple 100,000 years, we'll all be one color anyway. Everybody's breeding with everybody else. You tell me how many Klansmen are out there looking at some hot black broad thinking, yeah, I'd do her. Probably. It worked for Tom Jefferson, didn't it? Diddling the slaves. That's what's going to become, if we don't blow ourselves up, we'll all end up one color. The problem is, we're not all one religion. Boy, I sit there, that's a whole other can of worms. I sit there and think, if we could just believe in God without putting a name on the religion, I mean, if ever there's a time that God should say, hello, here, see, you people really ought to be getting along a little better. It'd scare the living crap out of us, wouldn't it? Imagine some huge booming voice from who knows telling us, listen, you. I wonder how long it'd last. I wonder if God actually spoke to us, say, hey, you Palestinians and Israelites, and hey, you blacks and whites, and hey, you. How long would it last? A month? 6 months? Probably last 6 months to a year, I'd think, just like 9/11. 6 months to a year after 9/11, everybody was back to fighting again. Remember, we were all one nation for a while there. We were all our brothers' keepers and all that. All one color, one race, one religion. We were American, and that's that. It took about 6 months to a year, and then the next thing you know, there's people popping off again, and you hear about white racists and Al Sharpton types, and everybody says everybody can't get along, and how long would it be after God talked to us that we'd forget all about it? Triple the forecast from TV. Odd thought, huh? It might take more than a year. I mean, we remember Jesus. That's been a couple thousand, right? But when you start getting involved in that Middle East hornet's nest, everybody claims their own God, don't they? Oh, that's our God. I don't know who your God is. Oh, really? Well, if an Israelite needed a heart transplant, wouldn't a Palestinian one work? Imagine it would. Needed a kidney transplant. The head of the Klan needs a kidney transplant or he's going to die. Would he take it from some black guy that died in a car accident? Oh, I'll take it. Just don't tell me what color the person was. I said, don't tell me where it came from. All I need to do is pee. Triple up the forecast from TV3 meteorologist Betsy Kling tonight. Clearing out 53 for a low. Tomorrow, mid-70s. Currently, 62 degrees in Cleveland. 62. Next weekend's going to be great. Memorial Day weekend. Step on down to the Tops Great American Rib Cook-Off down there at Tower City Amphitheater. Real easy to find, just down there at the bottom of the Eagle Street ramp. Right? Just find Jacobs Field and go down the hill. Real simple. Got broadcasting there Friday with the Mike Trevisano Show. Goes on all weekend. Extra innings after the Indians games Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The golf show is going to be there, and I'll be there too. Yours truly, broadcasting. And I'll get to see my buddy Butch from Smack Your Lips Barbecue in Laurel, I think it's Laurel, New Jersey. I've seen him every year for God knows how many years. And I like all the ribs down there, but I like the conversation with Butch. He's a good old boy. I didn't think they had hillbillies in New Jersey. I guess they're everywhere. You can also register to win a Lazy Boy reclining chair. Wouldn't that be nice? Over there in the WTAM Sports Lounge, Basista Furniture. You're going to give away a Lazy Boy. And you can lay at home in your Lazy Boy and listen to the Tribe right here on your home of the Tribe. News Radio, WTAM 1100.
Rick Gilmore.
What? Stop. Who is it? That's my dog.
On News Radio, WTAM 1100.
That's my dog indeed. Get a couple phone calls in here before the news. Matt, you're on the big one.
Hey, Rick, how you doing?
All right.
All right, you made a comment a little bit ago, about 15 minutes ago, and about how this country's not real good at nation building.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
How do you think we're doing now?
You mean our nation or other nations?
Our nation.
Well, that's what I meant. Nation building means building up other nations, not our nation. You know, I mean, get with the program. Frank, you're on the air.
Hey, Rick.
Hi.
How you been, buddy?
All right. Did that make sense? I mean, nation building, I thought he'd know what that meant.
Yeah, well, that's... who knows?
Okay.
There's always something interesting going on your program. I wanted to make a comment about... I remember... this might have been a few weeks ago or something like that. Maybe a month ago. I don't know. But you were telling me how you've been in this business for like 8 years or 10 years or something like that?
14 years.
14 years, and you're not famous yet or something like that.
Oh, I don't remember how it came up. It was one of those overnight success takes 15 years.
But you never know. You might be famous and you don't even know it, Rick.
Well, I know I have some notoriety. I'll give it that. I've bumped into people who... I always love the funny look. You go into a restaurant and you're speaking with someone and you get somebody giving you that... I know that voice. You know that look? I know that voice.
Yeah, what's fame? Is it, they put a big stamp on your head, famous or something like that? That's what I mean. It's,
When you see me driving the BMW 760 V12, then you'll know I'm famous. When you see me keeping dual residency, just so in case I want to go to a neighborhood, so I'll have a house there, so in case I don't feel like driving home.
Or you're buying drinks for everybody.
Yeah, you see me throwing around $100 bills, and you'll know I'm famous. You know what? It would be more. If you had to put a finger on it, that's an interesting question. Would you rather have fame or fortune? If you couldn't have both, I'd take fortune.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn who'd know who I was when I was driving down the street in my brand new car.
Yep. If you got a minute, one subject I would like for you maybe to touch on one day.
Yeah.
Is how the criminals have learned to like if you get somebody victimizes you,
Yeah.
You get robbed or something like that.
And I only got a few seconds there.
How these guys nowadays, they turn it around on you, and turn you into the criminal.
Yep, I know what you mean. Frank, I'm right up on the news. Appreciate the call. Yep, that's a good question. Well, I wrote it down here. How criminals can turn things around on you, just like all my girlfriends I've ever had. They take two words you say, twist them around, and stick them down your throat. It's always your fault, right? Only if you're horny, Otherwise, see, I don't do that fighting and you know what? I do the fight and walk away. Well, you know what later. More of the phone calls in the program after coverage of What in the World's Happening with Cliff Bakley, and it starts right now.
Rick Gilmore.
The old saying was, run, Jesse, run.
Yeah.
The new one is, pull out, Jesse, pull out.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
Joined on the line by Mr. David Eden, the editor-in-chief of the Free Times. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me on.
I have some questions. Now, a lot of folks are saying the Free Times. I thought the Free Times is gone now. I thought all we had was the scene. What happened?
Well, rumors of our death have been greatly exaggerated, and we're back this Wednesday, May 21st. 70,000 copies will be around Greater Cleveland in about 2,500 locations, just like they used to be. And I think the people in the city will be very surprised and extremely pleased that the Free Times is going to be coming back as strong as it will be.
Now, why did it go away to begin with?
Well, back at last October, 1 week after we celebrated our 10th anniversary in publication, the company that owned us, Village Voice Media, and the company that owned the Cleveland Scene called New Times out of Phoenix, made a deal to basically swap the Cleveland for Los Angeles markets. And because of that, we were basically traded for Los Angeles, and the owners of the Scene wanted a monopoly in this market. And we got shut down, and thankfully, people in Cleveland, including the arts community and Cleveland Public Theater and Dennis Kucinich, and a lot of our advertisers got together, and the U.S. Justice Department conducted a unprecedented antitrust investigation and discovered that both New Times, the Scene's owner, and our former owners colluded and violated the Sherman Antitrust Act, and that made it possible for the Free Times to get back in business as quickly as we are.
So you are not under the auspices of the Scene. You two are completely different companies and all that?
We were, and now the Scene is owned by guys from Phoenix, some out-of-towners that like taking Cleveland money and sending it back there, and the Free Times is owned by a group of former Free Times employees, plus a former Shaker Heights native, Pulitzer Prize winner, Art Howe, And a wonderful family from Erie is helping us out, the Meade family, which is one of the great families in American history. And we can't be more excited to come back and be locally owned and locally operated.
Now, when folks remembered the free times of old, how will the new free times be different?
Well, I think people will see a lot of what they remember in the old free times. We're coming back with almost all our editorial staff. We'll be having City Chatter, which in fact will be expanded. Our great music section under Jeff Nissel will be back with his writers. We have almost all of our writers back. We're expanding our arts coverage, including classical music, more art reviews. We are expanding our editorial page. We're going to have an editorial. We're going to do endorsements. We're going to have an editorial cartoon. We're going to debut a great new young comic artist named Jake Kelly, who's doing an original comic for us, and a few other columns that'll be in the paper. So it's a lot like the old free times and a few new twists, too.
I think it's good. Competition is good. It was interesting that I saw an article in the Plain Dealer. I don't know if you want to comment on this or not. It was Angela Townsend wrote an article about how the Campbell administration had said that they were going to be a more open administration with the media, and there'd be a wide open door there at City Hall. We'd get all the information we wanted, and now she's changed her mind.
Well, I think Jane Campbell has proven over her last year and a half in office that she is not really the leader Cleveland needs, and her openness at the beginning of her administration basically led to her becoming a joke in the city to many, many people. And I think she's realizing that she can't control the media, and I think she's worried that the Free Times is going to come back. And, you know, we called her Queen Jane before, and we're going to call her Queen Jane again and tell people what we think she does that is good. But a lot of what she does is really not much these days.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that she's probably going to be a one-termer. I was going to say, I called the Plain Dealer and tried to get a hold of Angela, and someone else called back and said, well, our writers aren't comfortable commenting on things. I said, are you telling me that basically the Campbell the grasp on the media is working? Is that what you're saying? Because I said, it's not like she's commenting on something that she did not write about in the newspaper. And he said, well, our reporters have to walk the hallways of City Hall every day, and so they wouldn't be comfortable. I said, but she wrote an article about it. I found there to be a large dichotomy there, don't you? That, I mean, if you'll write about it in the paper, why won't you talk about it on the radio? And you know what he said? I'll get you Doug Clifton.
Well, you know, a lot of the reporters and columnists tell me privately that PD really means PC, the politically correct newspaper for Cleveland. But, you know, I'm not going to defend Angela, but I will say if she's a reporter reporting about it, you know, she's not really paid to give her opinion. I'm paid to give my opinion. Brent Larkin's paid at the PD gave his opinion, or Sam Fullwood. So, you know, she was doing her role, and I understand that. But I think your point about one-term Jane is very valid. I know Lanigan calls her that all the time, and I think that she really has not taken the reins in her term as mayor and provided any real leadership for the city at a time when it really needs it.
I'm speaking with David Eden, the editor-in-chief for the Free Times. It's making a comeback, he said, this Wednesday?
This Wednesday.
And, of course, it's, like the name says, it's free.
It is absolutely free, and it's going to be just about where everyone picked it up before. And this is a historic issue. The Free Times returning to Cleveland is being watched around the country in media circles. The remedy that the Justice Department and state attorney generals in Ohio and California have put in effect to make it possible to have more media competition in Cleveland and eventually in Los Angeles was the right thing to do. The guys from Phoenix, you know, violated the Sherman Act. They could not compete against a strong competitor like the Free Times. They were a failing newspaper. That's what their CEO, Jim Larkin, told the New York Times. They have lost millions and millions of dollars in Cleveland, and the only way they could make it was to try to do something shady, so they were the only guys in town. But you know something? They're going to get theirs.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of times shady things go on and then they never get corrected.
Well, you know, that kind of restores my faith in, I guess, our American justice system, that I never would have expected the John Ashcroft Justice Department to give a hoot about a deal that closed down the Cleveland Free Times or New Times Los Angeles. But there were some attorneys there, some career attorneys that believe that more voices, divergent voices, are very necessary in markets like Cleveland. And they couldn't have asked for a better textbook case, because these guys in their memo basically gave Justice Department a smoking gun, saying how they were literally swapping markets. So it was, we're happy that they did it. We were surprised and pleased at how it turned out.
Did Dennis Kucinich actually get something done here, or did he just talk about it?
Well, I'll tell you something. Dennis Kucinich listened to his constituents, and he listened to the Cleveland arts community and the small business community. He made calls, I know, to Justice and the FTC. And one of the things that I think people can be proud about Dennis is that when he knows someone gets screwed in Cleveland, he stands up for him. And I'm going to tell you something else that Scene did, because of what Dennis did to bring us back, is they did a hatchet job a few weeks ago called Hollow Man on Dennis and his past. And that's something that the New Times Company and Scene, pretty much ordered be done, because here's a guy that stood up to him. And then they're making fun of Cleveland and Dennis in their papers in St. Louis. And, that's the type of people these guys are. They're really cowards and creeps.
Well, like I say, competition is good.
Competition is very good.
Does that mean that if Dennis, if you're writing in the Free Times, does that mean if Dennis does something naughty or stupid that you will not write about it?
We will absolutely write about it, and Dennis knows that. In fact, we started the Dennis Kucinich portrait painting contest, back in the fall, and this is when Jane Campbell was going to hold kielbasa dinners to get a portrait of Dennis painted for City Hall.
Yeah.
Well, we still have all those paintings and offerings, and we're going to bring that back. And, Dennis will get what Dennis deserves. That's one of the things that the Free Times does. We don't pull our punches. We're happy that Dennis stepped in, but, when Dennis needs to be spanked, we'll spank him, and when he needs to be patted on the back, we'll pat him on the back, just like everyone else in town.
I just had this visual of Queen Jane eating a kielbasa.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yep. So when I always went out before the Free Times got the dirty deal there, I would always find the Scene and the Free Times usually in the same spot next to each other.
That's right.
Is that the way it's going to be now too?
Well, I think they're going to want to be next to us, because ours will be flying off the racks, and maybe they might have a chance to move a few papers. But the other thing that I'm doing in the first editorial in the Free Times is I'm asking the people of Cleveland to boycott the Phoenix-owned Scene, because we don't want to reward sleazeballs and antitrust collusionists, and it's not the Cleveland way. It's just like, why would we reward Art Modell for taking the Browns out of Cleveland? No, we got the Browns back, and we got them back with our name and our colors, and that was big news in the sports world. Well, we got the Free Times back with our colors and our name, and that's big news in the media world.
Well, very good. I'm looking forward to this Wednesday in the first issue and making a big comeback here in Cleveland. And like I say, it's a good thing to have, because when I get Doug Clifton on, the first question I'm going to ask him is, why did we end up being a one-newspaper town?
Well, that's interesting, too. And you might ask him, for example, on that subject, why the current publisher of the Plain Dealer, Alex Machaski, was involved back in 1982 in making sure the Cleveland Press went out of business. And you also might ask him why, if the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times and the Wall Street Journal and the San Francisco Bay Guardian and other major papers did big stories about the Cleveland Free Times and this antitrust investigation, why the Plain Dealer was largely silent about it.
Yeah,
ask him why, and ask him why only Cranes did any original reporting about it. Ask him why.
I think most people just think, oh, well, newspapers go belly up, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, correct me if I'm wrong, but are not the Sun newspapers also owned by the same company that owns the Plain Dealer?
Absolutely. The Plain Dealer owns not only the Sun newspapers, our primary weekly newspapers in greater Cleveland, and, of course, the Plain Dealer. They also own Cleveland.com, the website. So here we are in a city that its major media is dominated by one company out of New York, Newhouse. We have Channel 3 owned by Gannett. We have, other stations owned by out-of-town companies. And one of the issues I know right now before the FCC, and you might have been following, is the issue of whether or not newspapers can now own TV stations in their town, the bigger consolidation of media, just like the radio, just like in your business, where I think Cleveland's radio market, we have only 5 stations that are not owned by one or two companies. So the more independent media we have in Cleveland or any city is great. So, we can exist in Cleveland with Scene And for a long, long time, can they exist with us? They can't compete with us editorially. They've been copying. It's interesting, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So, they came out with their first punch page, tried to do city chatter. It's fallen flat on its face. They don't know Cleveland. Their staff isn't from Cleveland. Their editor, was in Iowa, I think, raising pigs or something before he came here. Doesn't know anyone in the city. The Cleveland Free Times has an editor that grew up in Cleveland, has a publisher that's in Cleveland. We're Cleveland-owned. We're staffed by Clevelanders.
Well, that sounds like a win-win, and I know how Clevelanders are. We're very Cleveland-oriented.
Absolutely. I've lived all over the country. I worked at newspapers in Dallas and Minneapolis and Detroit. I was a television and media columnist in Detroit, wrote about guys like you. And the thing about Cleveland is that we know, what's right and what's wrong, and what the people that own scene, these Phoenix cowards did because they could not compete in this city. They cut a dirty deal. They concocted a dirty scheme to try to think they could violate the law and get away with it. But they were caught, and they were caught because the people in the city cared, and because they were good career lawyers in the Justice Department and the state attorney general's offices in California and Ohio that wouldn't let them get away with it.
Speaking with David Eden, the editor-in-chief for the Free Times, it's coming out, the all-new issue this Wednesday. It'll be all over the city. While I got you on the horn, I got to ask you, I've mentioned this for many years. I said, you go to smaller towns, and a lot of them seem to know their lot in life, and they understand they're a small town. And I said, Cleveland seems to have a complex where we're constantly jumping up and down and shouting, but see, we're a big city, but see, we're a big city, but see, and I had a call from New York, and a man says, you know what people in New York think about Cleveland? And I said, what, that's a cow town? He said, people in New York don't think about Cleveland.
Well, people in New York just think about New York. There's the great New Yorker cartoon where it takes you to the rim of the Hudson River, to the riverbank, and then everything west of there is kind of like pasture land and prairie and all that. But I think the people in Cleveland should know, and I can say this because I've lived in some of those hot cities. I've lived in Dallas. I've lived in Minneapolis. This is a wonderful place to live. It's not New York. It's not Chicago. It shouldn't try to be. I moved back here from Dallas because this is the city I wanted to raise my kid in. My wife's a teacher in the Cleveland Public School system. We are part of the city, and then I bring in people from out of town, from New York or Philadelphia, and I drive them around, the eastern suburbs, and I drive them around the western suburbs. I take them downtown, and they can't believe that this is Cleveland. So I think one of the things that has to change in Cleveland is that our attitude about ourselves, and that this whole thing the plain dealer's been doing with the quiet crisis, well, they're one of the main reasons why there's a quiet crisis, if there is one in this community. Every city in this country right now is going through tough times, but I'll tell you something, we have a hell of a lot to offer, and papers like Scene that constantly rip it down and have people from outside the city that don't know the history of it, don't know what we've been through, that have no idea what it's like to be from Cleveland, don't belong here. Let them go back to Phoenix. Papers that, like the Plain Dealer, that have editors that come in from Miami. They've been here a few years. They don't know the town, but they think they can tell us what we are by doing the quiet crisis. That doesn't serve us well.
Yeah, I'm a Clevelander, born and raised. I've had the opportunity to move to other cities to do radio, and I turned it down. And I have this weird attitude because I'm trying to buck the trend. People say, if you really want to make it big, you got to get out of Cleveland. And I said, that's just not true, because with the way radio works nowadays, all you have to do is plug in a couple patch cords. I mean, where does Rush Limbaugh do his show from?
That's right. Well, it goes back to this whole notion, what is making it big? Is making it big, writing in Chicago or writing in Dallas. I've done that stuff. I've written a daily column in Detroit. I was 25, and I was writing for a newspaper that had 650,000 circulation. I wrote a daily column. You get to the point of, what's making it big? What's making it big is living in a great city, having good friends, trying to make things better, trying to make the schools better, trying to improve life long term. It's not instant ego gratification that you get from the media, because you know what happens when guys move around. They want to get a job in New York and L.A., and then they're out of job in a year. This is a great city. It's a good news town. Unfortunately, it's been under the thumb of one company for a long time. With the Free Times coming back, you're going to see a lot of new energy, many more stories, and an improved civic debate.
It was one of the highest compliments I ever got paid when I asked regional program director Kevin Matheny. I said, why is it that some radio people have to move all over the country and I can stay put? He said, because you've got talent? I said, thank you very much.
Well, you know, Cleveland's the same size as Minneapolis, which is where my wife's from and my second home. And Minneapolis has a great media community, great radio community, guys like Steve Cannon and stations like CCO, much like TAM is. And the way that makes a great station is they have people from the city that know the city, that can talk about it, that people in the city trust.
There's the big word, trust.
That's it.
And if I had one article I'd like to see in the New Free Times,
yes,
I'd like to see an investigation of who owns all that land in the flats and why is nothing being done with a lot of it.
Well, I think it'd be a good investigation to do. I think, you know, there are a bunch of people that own a lot of land in the flats, but one of the things that you do something with land when there's something to be done and when the economy's better. And right now, I think, you know, as you well know, last couple of years under George Bush, the economy has been really in the tank.
And another question that, and I don't know whether, I mean, someone else asked me this question, and I'll just toss it out because someone, they floated a rumor. They said, you know, the Valley View projects over in Tremont?
Yes.
They said that the land that the Valley View projects sits on is owned by someone. It is owned by, this is what they thought, it was owned by Dick Jacobs. And I said, is that possible? How could you own land with a public housing project on it?
Well, you know, there are a lot of crazy rumors that go around, and I would kind of agree with you. So if anyone wants to check out who owns what land, all they have to go to is the county records and check out the parcel, and they'll tell you who owns it. It's very simple. Because
a lot of people are not going down to the flats anymore, you know what I'm saying, for entertainment. And I look around, drive around down the flats, and I think, geez, there's so much, you know, if we did something with it, it could be beautiful, not just blighted.
Well, the flats, you know, had its hot period, and I think, you know, there are parts of it that'll come back. But the warehouse district, where our new offices are, you know, really seems to have taken away some of the clientele that used to go down to the flats. But I can tell you one thing, we're having a great time with the fact that our competitors at Obscene Magazine have spent $2.5 million to buy the naming rights of a music pavilion over at Nautica. And, you know, they're the laughing stock of the industry now.
Well, David, I appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday evening to come on the program.
Hey, my pleasure. And listen, anytime, just give me a holler. I'll be glad to talk to you. And, you know, any of your listeners that want to talk, be glad to do that, too.
And I'm looking forward to Wednesday, so I got a couple of papers to read.
Absolutely. 70,000, about 2,500 locations Wednesday. One of the great papers in Free Times history, and we thank the people of Cleveland and our advertisers for that.
And the Free Times makes its triumphant return. Thanks again, David.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's David Eden, editor-in-chief of the new Free Times that'll be coming out this Wednesday. And competition is good. Even if there's only 2 or 3 papers, well, that's better than just 1 or 2. You have to have some competition, man. Keeps people on their toes, right? If there was no competition whatsoever in any market, can you imagine how bland radio would be if no one was saying, hey, I don't want that guy to... That's what makes us move, man. Hey, I'm not going to sit still and have somebody else do a better program I'm going to do a better program than them. That sort of thing. Competition is good. More of your phone calls, more of the program after these important words and coverage of what in the world's happening. I'm Rick Gilmour, the thinking man's friend. This is News Radio, WTAM 1100.
The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but it's after 10. We ought to put the children in the other room or something. I don't really plan on saying anything dirty. But one never knows. One just never knows. You just got to keep the program director listening constantly. See what that pesky who's going to say. Who?
The Rick Gilmour Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
Oh, full program tonight, huh? Boy, I've got a whole bunch of pairs of passes to give away throughout the evening, too, for 4-packs of movie screening passes to see Bruce Almighty. That's that Jim Carrey movie where he gets the power of God on Tuesday, May 20th at 7:30 at Lowe's Richmond Town Square in Richmond Heights. I don't know. I'll just, throughout the evening, just keep it tuned right here to the big one if you'd like to go see on us. We pick up the dime, just like the toll free at 888-723-WTAM. and give you a 4-pack of tickets to go see that new Jim Carrey movie, Bruce Almighty. Phone number here, 578-1100 in the classic 216 area code. I gave you the toll-free. I'll give it to you again. 888-723-WTAM. This was an interesting article. Alabama's new public safety director has installed a formal policy against racial profiling by state troopers. Or as we like to call it, driving while black. Isn't that what they call it? Turn on your microphone in there, Edmund, please. You are a person of color, an African American?
Yes.
Have you ever been profiled?
I would believe so. I've been stopped a few times, and just, a real bogus explanation of why I was being stopped. We couldn't see your plate that well. Nothing's covering it. It's broad daylight, but you just couldn't see my plate. Maybe you need glasses, but,
I've been profiled. I used to have real long hair and a mustache and a goatee, and
right.
I had a 68 Cadillac, real nice car, and I got pulled over, and I asked the officer, why did you stop me? And he said, because someone like you didn't look like you should be driving a car that nice. Now, did anybody pull Daffy Dan over? You've seen him, haven't you?
Yes.
Do you think they're pulling him over all the time? Nah, they're probably running his plate and going, oh, that's Daffy Dan.
Right.
Probably. But anyway, I just wanted to get your opinion on that, have you weigh in. The new policy prohibits troopers from stopping motorists based solely on ethnicity, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, religion, economic status, age, or cultural group. Wow. Them troopers down in Alabama are got to be saying, I smell a lawsuit coming. And mandates annual training. Public safety director down there, Birmingham's former police chief, Mike Coppage, what a name for the former police chief, Coppage, says, quote, there is no place in any professional law enforcement organization for any type of bias-based enforcement, end quote. The new policy is drawing praise from black legislators who have expressed concerns about racial profiling in the past. I'd like to hear from you if you're a police officer. Don't you smell a lawsuit coming down there? I mean, what if you had that up here in the city of Cleveland? Do they have a policy already in the city of Cleveland? I'll repeat that again. New policy prohibits state troopers in Alabama from stopping motorists based solely on ethnicity, national origin, gender, sexual orientation. What's that mean? That mean if you see a carload of cross-dressers driving down the road with a big box tied to the roof? I guess the box is the reason that you had to stop the car, not the cross-dressers. Gender, so I don't understand where that would fit in anyway. Does it matter if, don't we already know that all women are poor drivers? Religion, economic status, age, or cultural group, and mandates annual training. Seems to cover a lot of bases there. As far as I'm concerned, it sounds to me like anyone that gets pulled over for any reason, if they do not get a ticket, well, then what was I doing wrong? That's the flip side. Doesn't it sound like anyone, if they do not get cited for something, well, then why'd you pull me over, man? I think the biggest mistake is when you get pulled over and an officer actually tells you, well, I didn't think you looked like you belonged in a car that nice. Well, geez, it's not like it was new. You ever seen that? You drive around, you see kids look like they're 16, 17 years old, and you think, boy, how'd they afford that? I suppose that happens a lot more out in the burbs. I'll go out, drive around in someplace like Westlake, and there's kids out there driving around in brand new cars. Not just something that Dad would drive. The ones with the spoiler on the back and the flames on the sides and that kind of junk. And you think, well, yeah, I really don't think the old man's driving that. You see more people out in the wealthier suburbs. You see more 17 or 18 or 19-year-olds driving brand new Jeep Wranglers. I'm not jealous. I just know it's money. You drive around out there, and drive around in Westlake. What would be the equivalent on the east side of Westlake? Lyndhurst? Pepper Pike? I don't know, in that kind of area. How many Hummers do you see on the road? Oh, they're going off-roading in Pepper Pike. Yeah, I need four-wheel drive in Westlake. They never plow the streets. No, the streets are always plowed. That's why you live in Westlake. It was one of my complaints about Lady Jane, the mayor. All you gotta do, Jane Campbell, is pick up my garbage and plow my street. That's all I want. Pick up my garbage and plow my street. Now, so far, you've picked up my garbage. But my street did not get plowed all winter long, except for some nice guy who plows parking lots. And since he was getting paid to do the parking lot, he probably figured, well, I'll be a nice guy and drop the blade, and I'll do the street. But the mayor didn't. They didn't. Maybe I should be making phone calls. See, I don't think you should have to call your councilman. I don't think you should have to pick up the phone when it comes to plowing the streets. I don't think you should have to call city services. That should be a given. That should just get done. Anyway, back to the cops. I don't know how often it happens. I heard about years ago there was a code in Lakewood, NIL, and the N being a very derogatory term for a black person, and the IL meant in Lakewood. Now, I would hope that times have changed. And can you imagine that? I can imagine being out, say, out in the fringes of the suburbs out, I don't know, pick a city. You're out in North Ridgeville in 1955. Well, after the bus takes all the black people that work in anybody's homes back to Cleveland, well, then the cops are thinking, well, what's this person doing driving around? I had heard it even in the 1950s. If you saw someone on a motorcycle after midnight and they were not a motorcycle cop, they're going to get stopped because of motorcycle gangs and that sort of thing. I suppose it was a simpler time and more difficult for others. My father told me stories of they used to drag race out in Westlake. They'd get a car to block each end of Columbia Road. One at Center Ridge and the other end at Hilliard or wherever it was. And they'd just have a car block the road and no one lived on it. Hardly. Or whatever road, Canterbury or Columbia or one of those. And if anybody tried to drive up the road, they'd say, we're sorry, the police told us there's an accident and you can't go through. Well, they'd drag raced up and down the road. A simpler time for some, but more difficult for others. John, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
All right.
Hey, I was just calling. I know you had asked for some police officers to call in about this, but I'm not a police officer. I'm a corrections officer in a juvenile detention center. And, I agree. I think it's ridiculous that we even, have to be told stuff like this. But you would be surprised. There are people, there are officers, policemen or corrections that do need to be told this and taught this. And I don't know. I think it is ridiculous, though.
Well, I thought it was interesting, and I thought I'd bring it up. I guess it seemed to me that some profiling's always going to happen just because. I mean, I've seen people driving down the road, and they look like they're 14. I mean, they're not just young-looking 16s. They look like they're 14, and I thought, boy, if I were a cop, I'd be pulling them over going, gee, Junior, can I see a license?
My fiance still gets pulled over to this day. She's 24. She's going to be 25 here in a few months. And she still gets pulled over for her age. She looks that young. I even remember myself as a kid driving around with my friends getting pulled over just because, a carload of teenagers, that can't be good,
Yeah, when I was 31, they were still asking for my ID to buy beer.
Right.
So some people look younger than others. Maybe I'm a fooler. I don't know. But nobody's thinking I'm 16 now. But it seems to me that I'm just worried that the cops are just going to, say this starts going all across the country. Well, you're going to have more people, because it's a litigious society we live in, and everybody is so sue-happy. Now, just what we need, like the city of Cleveland and all the overtime with the police because they were not pulling people off the streets and they needed security at the airport. So there's all this overtime being paid, and the city doesn't have the money. The government was supposed to give us all kinds of money, every city, for Homeland Security. They haven't doled it out yet because they haven't gotten around to printing it, I guess. And it's just a mess. That's all we'd need is to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry that gets pulled over saying, because that covered every possible person you could ever meet. They could say, well, I'm a black female, or I'm a Hindu, or I'm a regular old white guy, and you picked on me because I was in a black neighborhood, or whatever. I mean, they could just dream something up and try and sue the city.
You're just giving them excuses.
Yep. I mean, common sense should prevail here. You don't need
It should.
Yeah, it should.
It should. Like I said, I have, I hate to say it, but there are people that I work with that will profile against juveniles, sex, religion, race, and even other officers. And, that makes me sick. So I'm kind of in cahoots about, whether you need to have this or you shouldn't.
Yeah, just something I wanted to get off my chest. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Rick.
Hey, more than welcome. And be careful. Yeah, trust me, the question I'm asking here is certainly not anti-cop. I was drinking at the Zone Car last night. This was the Cleveland Police Memorial Weekend going on. Big deal. There weren't as many people there as there were last year. Maybe they all got partied out on Friday night. I don't know. But the thing that worries me is the damn lawsuits. We can't afford it. The city can't afford to do what they're doing now. The city should be able to afford to pay officers overtime and all that. With this Homeland Security, and just you wait, right? What happens when it's our turn next and something else happens? Well, you gotta have cops, right? One of my big complaints about going into Iraq is having an exit plan to be able to get out of there. And I know a lot of people don't like the idea of putting soldiers on the streets of the U.S. to patrol the streets, and I don't think maybe they should be patrolling the streets, but I think you could have soldiers doing the job that the cops are doing at the airport. You could have soldiers walking around with rifles and dogs and checking people's cars just like the cops walk around with their sidearm and the dog. And what am I saying? Maybe I shouldn't be saying that. Maybe the cops enjoy the overtime. And hey, you're more than welcome to it. I don't have a problem with that. It's just we got to be able to pay everybody. Ask one-term Jane if she can come up with the dough. Triple Doppler forecast from TV3's Betsy Kling. Tonight, clear, 53 for a low. Tomorrow, cloudy, mid-70s. Let's look ahead, shall we? Sure. Tuesday, some rain in the forecast, low 70s. Currently, 62 degrees in Cleveland, 62 degrees. Listen for the Tribe Fan Fact during Extra Innings with Kevin Keene. And listen to Win Indians tickets the next morning on Wells and Coleman in the morning. Wake up informed. Don't be a dum-dum. And there's some great seats left for the 2003 season. Just pick up the phone and call 420-HITS, H-I-T-S, 420-HITS in the classic 216 area code. Your home of the Indians is right here. News Radio, WTAM 1100. Hiram, you're on the big one.
How you doing, Rick?
All right.
Rick, first time call on your show. I wanted to talk about Bush and the Iraq, North Korea situation, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I have quite a bit to say. So, first of all, I want to say I voted for Bush. However, I'm neither a liberal or conservative. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I vote for what I think is right. I don't care who is for, who is by, or whatever.
I'm with you there.
Okay. Now, I watched Bush go to Iraq, and by the way, 50%, the latest poll has a little bit more than 50% of the people polled feel that he overestimated the weapons of mass destruction over in Iraq.
Well, it looks that way. They haven't found any yet.
Yeah, at the beginning, and I want to remind those people, Hans Blix was saying, leave these people alone. They're destroying their weapons. Leave them alone. But yet still, he proceeded to go to war with them. It makes me, it's looking more and more like an agenda, Rick. This is the reason why he went over there. The reason I say that is because I go back when he first got to presidency, the axis of evil, right?
Right.
Remember Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. Now I see how he went over to Iraq and and dismantled them. But now I'm watching them how he's dealing with the North Korea thing. Much tougher army, isn't it?
Well, you know, my belief is that when we went into Iraq, we picked somebody we knew we could beat.
Yeah.
And it was to pacify the American people so they could say, see, we're winning the war on terror.
Right. But what you really did was created a bigger war on terror. You created a bigger base for the war on terror because people, especially if you don't find any weapons of mass destruction, because they can go back and say, look, you took out Iraq, and you didn't even have a basis for taking them out. So you created a bigger, a wider range of enemies over in the Islamic countries. But here's the thing, though, is that I've been keen on how he's watching me and keen on watching him deal with North Korea, and it's a completely different story. These people acknowledge the fact that they have weapons of mass destruction. Not only that can reach the United States. And he's not nearly as aggressive in going after them as he did Iraq. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, I think China's keeping a pretty good check on Korea.
Well, it seems like North Korea is looking at the United States. I mean, they said, look, if you pose economic sanctions on us, we feel that that's an act of war, and we will declare war on you. Period.
Well, my opinion was that I thought that we should just take our troops out of South Korea.
Well, I mean,
we've got 37,000 plus troops over there, and they don't even want us there. Have you noticed a trend? Everywhere we go around the world, we liberate somebody or whatever we're saying we're doing, and then they say, well, get the hell out.
Yeah.
They want us the hell out of Iraq. They're pining away for the good old days of Saddam Hussein, who was a madman, but you'd have to be a madman to keep all those factions in check.
Right. But here's my thing, though, Rick. And this happened under Clinton, too. I'm not just going to blame Bush. This stuff that you have to police the world, this world policeman stuff, this stuff going to have to stop.
Well, it goes back to George Marshall after World War II and the Marshall Plan that said we're supposed to police force the whole world.
Yeah, this stuff, because it's creating too many enemies. I mean, pretty soon, nobody but the United States is going to be able to have nuclear weapons.
Think of it this way. It's part of a grand scheme that they're looking 20 years down the road, and think of the three tenets of war. Someone wins, someone loses, and someone profits.
Yeah. And then here's the thing about Bush. It was found out that Halliburton is playing a lot bigger role in getting the money over in Iraq than what they let on. I don't know if you've been following that.
Oh, I've been bitching about it for a while. I'm not real happy about it. Everyone in the Bush administration can be tied somehow or another to energy.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said, I voted for Bush, and you can blame me for that. And
I voted for Bush too. I'm not happy with the way it turned out.
No, I'm not either. But it seems like it's more of an agenda than anything. And it was an agenda to go over to Iraq, and it seems like he's dragging his feet, especially on the economy thing. We haven't even touched upon that. But here's the thing, though. His administration seems like it has one big agenda on his hand. That's to fill the pockets of his friends and himself, line their pockets with money over in Iraq. It seems that way.
Yes, it certainly does, Hiram. I appreciate you checking in, Tiger. But it's not just the Bush family. Think about the families that have been in the office of the presidency. Think about, they're all family, the Bush family, the Kennedys. Now, look at old man Kennedy, was a bootlegger, was a criminal. He was in cahoots with selling weapons to the Germans. Before we got involved, of course, then it stopped. The Roosevelts. It doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat, these families. How many times have you heard the name Rockefeller? Senator Rockefeller, Governor Rockefeller, Vice President Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, Rockefeller. When you think the name Rockefeller, what's the first thing you think of? What's the first thing you should think of? This kind of tie everything a little bit more together for you. Sohio. BP, Sohio. Who started Sohio? Gee, what does Sohio sell? John D. Rockefeller, the old man, way back, started Sohio. And you keep hearing these names over and over again. Generation after generation after generation. Kennedys. How in the hell does Ted Kennedy keep getting reelected in Massachusetts? I thought that dynasty was broken. No, it's not broken. You'll hear the name Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy for the next 50 years. You've heard Rockefeller for over 100 years. When did he start Standard Oil? 1890 or 1900? I mean, it's been forever and ever and ever, and it all comes together, doesn't it? It all sort of ties in, doesn't it? It all ties into energy. Whoever controls the energy controls the earth. I was speaking with a guy who says, I've got this big old car I inherited and probably eats a lot of gas. He says, oh, dear God, Rick, don't even go there. I'd rather have you be driving 6 huge old cars than building 6 new cars. All the pollution and nonsense and petroleum that goes into the building of new vehicles. And how many of them do we build every year? Of course, the economy's in the dumper. Have you heard that? I'm sure you're fairly aware of the fact that, look in the Sunday paper, new cars, we can't give them away. Nobody's got any money. Oh, really? I've been telling you that for months. More of your phone calls after these important words and coverage of what in the world's happening. I'm Rick Gilmour, the thinking man's friend. This is Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hives.
Rick Gilmour.
I have never cheated on a woman ever. Ever. Ever.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
And that's the truth. There. Be the 11th and 12th callers right now at 578-1111. That's the contest line. Be the 11th and 12th caller right now to 578-1111 in the classic 216 area code. And giving away a couple of 4-packs of movie screening passes to see Bruce Almighty. That's Tuesday the 20th at Lowe's Richmond Town Square Theater in Richmond Heights if you're available at 7:30 in the p.m. to go sneak in there and see the movie on us and that sort of thing. Why pay when you can win it right here on the big one? Toll free, you're on the air.
Rick!
Oh, it's Dick from Dayton.
Hey, Rick, I wanted to say you got the good show tonight.
Now, I hung you sent a card to me.
Yes? I wanted to tell you something, Rick.
I thought you were criminally insane from the way there's all that writing inside of it.
Oh, Rick, I can't be insane. Hey, you know what?
Well, you could be.
No, I'm that good guy that, hey, guess what?
Well, if I didn't know it was from you, I wouldn't even open the envelope. Let's put it that way.
Well, I want to tell you something. What you were talking about on the air tonight, I'm taking this class at Sinclair, It's all put together. It's all good. I did a paper on terrorism. It's a good show tonight, Rick.
No, so you believe that we're in Iraq for oil?
Do I believe that?
Yes, Dick from Dayton.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think, Rick, we need to. I really do. I think we're talking about these 3 political ideologies, that are important,
Yes, sir.
Capitalism, socialism, communism. My favorite of this thing, I believe that we have these markets. The capitalism, I think, is the best way.
Oh, well, capitalism sucks, but it's definitely the best system we have.
Yes, it is. Hey, guess what?
What?
As I told you, not to repeat myself, but I'm real close to the sister station all the time. You hear him on the weekend. He's one of my best friends, like you.
Mike McConnell.
Yes.
I think they gave him that show or something. I hear him on it all the time.
You know what he says?
I need to go. I'm a little bit down. I need a little pick-me-up today.
He's got a pretty good show. Of course, I like your show, too,
So when he says that, what does he do?
Well, we talk...
oh, you mean when he picks up the phone and talks to you?
Yeah, he just, I'm his #1 fan. Brian is the producer like Nate.
So when he's down and he needs a little lift, he gets...
about every other day.
He gets a hold of Dick.
Yeah.
Talks to you.
What you guys, they got a sports talk up there, and then they got... It's Cunningham. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's the big one down there, and we're the big one up here.
Yeah, but you know who I've talked to quite a few times?
Real quick, Dick, what?
Mike Snyder, too.
Oh, yeah, he's a hell of a guy. I'll tell him you said hi. Okay. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up about Mike McConnell down there. He needs a little pick-me-up. He's feeling a little down. He gets a hold of Dick, talks to Dick from Dayton. Yep. Jimmy, you're on the big one.
Yeah, Rick, I want to refer to the Akron lesbian case, and it's unfortunate that anybody, let alone a child, has to be locked in the closet, but why do you think they let the girl go, but only the boys are in the closet?
So the boys needed to come out of the closet, really?
According to them.
Well, I would think so. That's the way those lesbians think. See, the kids can't come out of the closet unless we put them in the closet.
I would really prefer a cup of cocoa.
Yeah, so would I. David, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm calling about, I keep hearing people complain about, Bush and what he's did and what he's doing over in the Middle East and everything. And, we don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. We're on a need-to-know basis,
Then we don't need to know.
And the thing is, these people that we're dealing with over there, they're not rational people, and you can't rationalize with rational people. So I hear people complaining, and, I'm not all for war. I like peace, but what is the solution? I hear people complaining, but I don't hear nobody with no solution.
Yeah, ask Dennis Kucinich. That's what he made a living out of for years.
I'm definitely not a Dennis Kucinich fan, but...
It's funny because I've asked people if they're going to vote for Dennis, and some people will say, well, gee, I just have to. Well, what do you mean you just have to? Would somebody twist your arm?
Right. Well,
give you a free kibasi dinner or something?
I'm one of those people that, like other people say, I can't be Democrat or Republican, because, just like say I'm a Democrat all the way. Well, if there's of course there's, hopefully not going to be a Hitler running in Democrat, but I'm not going to vote for him just because he's Democrat. I'm going to vote for what I think's best. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I'd like to hear from the senator from the state of Ohio. He's too busy doing the governor's job. Let's hear from someone from the 10th district.
A sphincter says what?
Pardon me, Barron, you're on the air.
Yes, hello.
Yes.
I was wondering about, let me give an opinion, and then I'd like an opinion from you. We used to live in Brecksville, and we used to see all kinds of profile pickups, especially against African Americans back about 1994, 1995. It was just all the time. And on 77, they would profile the car, especially if it was a tricked out kind of car, that had, low riders or where they had the axle extensions. It was constant, and we really were upset by it, and then eventually moved. But that's my opinion. Now I want to ask a question of you. I enjoy your Thinking Man's program here. The Martha Burke issue.
Yes.
Have you ever put together that she's in this organization that includes now the National Organization of Women?
Bunch of militant lesbians.
Now, they very much politic and lobby for freedom of choice, and especially the abortion case. Is that correct?
Well, I have to say that, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. My opinion on abortion is I can't have one. So I can't really have much of an opinion to tell people that they can't have one because I'm not a woman.
But the idea here is freedom of choice. At the same time, private clubs, let's say the NAACP, they also have freedom of choice. Now, in other words, she wants to have it both ways. This private club...
Oh, I didn't know she did that.
Well, yeah, think about it. She made, in other words, they made a choice to have an all-male membership. Therefore, they're exercising their freedom of choice. However, she's the one that's a proponent of freedom of choice. So she's actually against what she values the most. And I wanted your opinion on that, and I'll listen.
All right. Well, I'll hang up on you. It's a dichotomy. Put it that way. It's a dichotomy, isn't it? Well, a lot of people want one thing, say one thing and do another, do as I say and not as I preach and all that. I really have little or no interest in whether or not there's women in the PGA or whatever. It goes back to that Casey Martin thing. Remember he had to have a cart because he couldn't walk the course, and I made a big ballyhoo about it years ago, saying, well, if you can't walk the course like everybody else, you shouldn't be able to play. And you know what ultimately did in Casey Martin? He just wasn't that great a golfer. Right? And you get women, and they can't hit that average 300-yard drive. They just can't do it. They're the fairer sex. They need to stick with what they know. They need to stick with things like talking on cell phones and driving SUVs and weaving all over the road. The fairer sex, the poorer drivers. They need to stick with things like Grocery shopping. Maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe you better do the grocery shopping, mister. He'll come home with all kinds of things that you have no use for. What the hell do you need a 48-pack of Tampax for? What's a doily? Air freshener? Yeah, I got an air freshener. I fart and open the window. There you go. There, you want a little fresh air? There's some fresh air for you, baby. A baking powder. What the hell does any man do with baking powder? And if you are doing something with it, you know what? I don't want to hear it. So maybe you ought to do the shopping. And you buy the car, right? You pick the car. Pick something sensible that won't go too far. That way, at least if she's going to cheat on you, it'll be in the neighborhood. Yeah, I believe that women should be put on a pedestal high enough that you can look up their skirt. Larry, you're on the big one.
Hey, Rick, how you doing?
All right.
I wanted to talk to you about racial profiling.
Yes, sir.
If you ever wanted to gather evidence about racial profiling, all you have to do is go to traffic court. And when you go to traffic court, all the people who got tickets, especially over the weekend, are all black. There may be a handful of white folks there, usually white women, who are talking on the cell phone and weaving around in their SUVs, but 88% of the people who get tickets are black men. And I've been to traffic court. I'm a cab driver. I've seen what goes on there. The cops usually lie about what they saw, and you're found guilty as soon as you walk in. And it's only a revenue-generating thing, but it generates revenue from the people who can afford it the least, and that's what makes it unfair. What do you think?
Now, you're talking about going to traffic court where?
Cleveland.
Right, and the majority of people that live in the city of Cleveland proper are?
Black.
Well, okay, now we're getting somewhere. I mean, do you think that they're strictly just pulling over? How many times have you been to traffic court?
Well, I've been there several times because I'm a cab driver.
Well, I'm saying I've known white people, trust me, that had to go to traffic court in Cleveland.
I'm not saying that white people don't go to traffic court in Cleveland.
Well, you just said that everyone in traffic court's a black male.
I said the majority of them are black males.
Well, but
88% of them.
But how many?
80%.
Well, I don't like percentages because I have to take somebody's word for it. I guess I haven't spent enough time looking around at traffic court in Cleveland to see how many people were in there and what color they were.
Well, see if you can get a bailiff from traffic court to call in.
Well,
I'll verify it.
I would think that I could get a Cleveland cop to call in that's hanging around in traffic court because he has to, and he could call in and tell me.
Yeah, they lie about everything.
Oh, sir, goodbye. That's not true. Blanket statements. There's liars in every line of work. We're humans. Some people are prone to fib and some people aren't. You can't take a group of people, like the Cleveland Police Department, and say, oh, they're all liars. Ed, my African-American board op, I defer to you. Have you been to traffic court in Cleveland?
Yes, I have.
Does it seem to you that most of the people there are black males?
No, I wouldn't.
80%?
Maybe not 80, but there's
60%?
I mean, you find a little bit of everything there.
How about 50%?
Maybe.
Okay, now 50% makes sense if the majority of people in the city of Cleveland proper are black, and the odds are, if you live in the city of Cleveland, the odds are that's probably where you're going to get a ticket, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not spending a whole lot of time driving around unless you live someplace else. If you live in Strongsville, the odds are that you probably have a higher chance of getting a ticket. So, that's all I wanted to know. I want to take a break, so I'll give you a little weather and that kind of thing and then get out of the room. Take care of some business. Triple Doppler forecast from TV3's Betsy Kling tonight. 53 for a low. Tomorrow, cloudy mid-70s. Currently 62 degrees in Cleveland, 62. But we're going to get some rain on Tuesday. You know, those spring storms and tornadoes can strike any time. You want to hear weather bulletins at once? Well, you got to tune right here. Your primary one emergency alert station, your official weather station, News Radio, WTAM 1100.
Rick Gilmore.
Okay, so what am I guilty? What am I guilty of sitting
on News Radio WTAM 1100?
Toll free, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
Great.
Hey, man, I just got off work. I'm in the car riding home. I turn on the radio. You're on. I was like, cool, I can listen to this on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to call and ask you a question, man.
Yes, sir?
What is a whisker biscuit?
I believe that's a moldy cookie. That's a cookie that you left out too long. And
Okay, I was thinking it was something totally different.
Well, yeah, you were probably thinking what Carmen thought it was, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Save a tree and eat a beaver.
Okay, thank you. All right, Theo, you're on the big one.
Is it Rick?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Theo. I'm calling in about, I want to know, do you know anything about this young man who won student president of Menor High School?
Yeah, the story where they...
Rick Gilmore.
Okay, so what am I guilty? What am I guilty of sitting on?
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
Joel Free, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Rick?
Great.
Hey, man, I just got off work. I'm in the car riding home. I turn on the radio. You're on. I was like, cool, I can listen to this on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to call and ask you a question, man.
Yes, sir?
What is a whisker biscuit?
I believe that's a moldy cookie. That's a cookie that you left out too long.
And okay, I was thinking it was something totally different.
Well, yeah, you were probably thinking what Carmen thought it was, but...
Right.
Yeah.
Save a tree and eat a beaver.
Okay, thank you. All right, Theo, you're on the big one.
Is it Rick?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Theo. I'm calling in about, I want to know, do you know anything about this young man who won student president of Menor High School?
Yeah, the story where they...
Did they have to do a re-election? And if so, that wasn't right because there's only 1% of blacks in the high school, and they said that they had 35 or 36 more ballots than they should have people. So something's got to be going on.
Well,
you know?
I want me to weigh in on that. I thought it was interesting that the kid won the class president election. Then his father said if they had the election again, he wouldn't win. Now, I thought, well, how do you know that? I mean, does that mean it was rigged the first time and that there was no way, not a snowball's chance in Lily White Mentor, that this kid would win a second time?
That's because the parents are telling their kids, don't you vote for him? Don't you vote for him? That's what the parents will be telling them, and they'll say, well, my parent told me, my mom and dad told me not to vote for this guy, you know?
Why would they do that?
You tell me. You know, there's still a little prejudice and bigotry here in Cleveland. You know, even though the children are different and they're trying to do things different, a lot of times the parents still have those old ideas.
Well,
and you know that happens, Rick.
I know. I mean, I've spent enough time speaking with people off the air, and you get around in a private place, and you know, people they'll start telling jokes about every ethnicity.
Right. You know, they say one thing, and then when you get around, and they got some racist jokes. You know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people look around. Oh, is there anybody black here? Oh, good, fair game to tell jokes, that kind of thing. And
that's right.
And I don't think they probably, if they had some zinger of a Mexican joke, they'd look around to see if anyone was Mexican. And you know that with the way the world's going, in a couple 100,000 years, we're all going to be one color anyway. So what the hell's it matter?
That's right. But could you give us a little more detail on how you feel that about this situation? Because this boy has gotten up in front and he has talked and given his what he will do as president of the student council and so forth, and then to take it away, and the principal is saying, his father went up there and his principal said, we're not going to show you the results or anything. But the thing that got me is that in order for them to post their ballots, they had 3 student council and 2 of the teachers sitting right there when they cast their ballots. So
I'll tell you. Okay, and I'll tell you exactly how I feel about it next hour. How about that? And I have an opinion. I have an opinion in general that actually it's really not that involved. But I'll make you wait. That's called a tease. More of the program after these important words and coverage of what in the world's happening on Cleveland's only news radio station. I'm Rick Gilmour, the thinking man's friend. This is WTAM 1100.
The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, and it's my show and my opinions, and they're mine, and I can say whatever I want.
Don't sass me, boy. You ain't too big for me to give you a licking.
Hey, speaking of that, after I tell you about how I feel about class president, I should weigh in on that Lakewood issue. That'll probably light them up. What's going on the western end of Lakewood, the redevelopment?
The Rick Gilmour Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
Caller last hour, Theo, wanted to know what I felt about the Mentor incident where the young African-American male, or as we used to call him in the old days, so there was this black kid got elected president. I didn't think that was all that insulting, was it? Ed, were you insulted? He wasn't insulted. You're African-American. So, in a predominantly white community, this black kid gets elected class president. Now there's a big brouhaha because they say there was some cheating on the voting and they want to have a revote, and if they have another vote, that the kid wouldn't win. Well, you don't know that, do you? Are you certain of that? Here's the deal. What does the class president do anyway? Doesn't the class pretty much do what the principal and the school board and the assistant principal or vice principal? Isn't that pretty much how the agenda works in school? And what was class president? Nothing but a popularity contest. Think back on your class president. Wasn't it one of the more popular kids in the school? I was not one of the popular kids in school. I know some people that were so bland, indistinguishable, and nondescript that they refused to go to their class reunion. But I had my 8 friends in school, and that's all I need. I don't need to go back and see any of those other people I went to school with. Well, for God's sake, how many times do you have a 25-year class reunion? Or a 20-year, or a 10-year? I mean, how often does that come along? Once. But I guess I just don't put a whole lot of credence in whether or not somebody's class president. What do? Play Hail to the Chief when they walk into the cafeteria? No, I don't think so. I always hated that whole thing anyway. Who wants to be on student council? Let's go back and check your yearbook. Look through there and check out the class president and the student council, who are really an ineffectual bunch anyway. And then see how many of them went on to be politicians. Probably Dennis Kucinich. I could see him being on student council. I guess in some regards he still is. John, you're on the air.
Richard.
Yes.
First of all the student council president does is lead the class to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Big deal.
At assemblies.
Yeah.
That's all they do. It's good for their resume, and they want to make it sound like they can get into a high or into a better college.
Oh, well, I don't know. I didn't go to college.
Trust me, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
In response to the guy just at the top of the hour, last hour, who said that if they had the election again, the father said if they held the election again, that he probably wouldn't get reelected.
Right.
And the caller's response was because all the parents would tell their kids not to vote for him.
Right, that's what he said.
Now we got a high school full of teenagers. When was the last time any teenager listened to what their parents said?
Well, there you go. If their parents tell them to not vote for the kid, they're going to vote for him.
Exactly. Now, imagine this now, Richard. What if the guy lost and they found cheating? He would be screaming racism, right?
Be like that racial profiling in Alabama.
Exactly. But he won and there's cheating. So do it again. Make it legitimate.
Well, if it's even that important. Like you said, what does the class president do anyway? But there you go. Have it again and just say, look, it's legitimate. And if he wins, he wins. And if he loses, he loses. I mean, I always looked at class president as like, okay, and who gets picked last in dodgeball? You know, it's bad for self-esteem to have that kind of competition between people sometimes. I don't know.
You know who got picked last in dodgeball?
Who?
The kid who wore glasses.
That was me. I didn't get picked last. You know what I always hated about dodgeball?
Tell me.
I would get picked at some point along the way, but I was always good at dodging out of the way, just not very good at throwing the ball back, right?
Right.
So it'd end up being me on one side, with everybody else who's already been hit, and they're rooting for me, and the best athlete in the class on the other side. And it was just a matter of time, just a matter of time before he ran you down into a corner where he could hit you, because I'm trying to hit him and I'm a lousy shot, so I couldn't hit him because he could run fast too. That's why he ended up being the last person on the other side. Very degrading.
You know what? To me, it's one of the worst things is dodgeball. I've always hated it too, because the object is to beat the other guy with a ball, all right, and have it bounce back in the center, and it looks like crap. But the game I really like from school, which you don't have anymore, although they're making leagues now in Washington, D.C., is kickball. I can't play softball for the life of me, all right?
Right.
Tennis, forget it. I mean, to me, it's just the gym or golf maybe once every 6 months.
Yeah, tennis is for fags anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a kick. There were some phone calls that I'm having. But
yeah, I know. I just thought about that when I said it. I thought, Rick, why do you have to say these things? I can hear my program director now. Rick, why did you have to go there? I mean, how many tennis players are really gay? I should have said Olympic divers are gay.
That would have been better. You'd have to have proof.
Yeah, well, probably a lot of them there. I don't know.
But kickball.
I can think of one.
Sure, figure skaters. But kickball is a great thing they did as a kid, but you never played anymore. I mean, if I had an adult kickball league, it'd be kick-ass,
Yeah, I suppose it'd be fun. I think that most adults should just do things like bowling. That way it doesn't involve a whole lot of stress, and you get to drink beer while you're doing it.
Well, so don't call it bowling. Just call it drinking in an alley.
Well,
wait a minute. I do that anyways.
Yeah, well, out of a brown paper sack.
40 ounce? That's right.
Well, what do you think about that Lakewood thing? They're talking about tearing down a bunch of junk over there and building a great big shopping center and some condos, and the people are all complaining because they live in these old houses. And they showed on TV the nicest house on the street that you could ever find in the west end of Lakewood, and old people. Always show the nicest house and old people. Yep. Sympathy factor. And I thought, some of them apartment buildings over there are cruddy looking. We're talking about, tearing down part of Sloan Avenue and around the corner in that area? Tear it down. Geez, if you can revitalize an area like that, do it.
I would, because it's right close to Rocky River. You're going to have people from Rocky River coming back in rather than people from Lakewood leaving to go to Rocky River.
Well, sure. When you got that thing in Rocky River, the Beechwood or whatever it is, the old theater they made into a shopping...
The Beach Cliff, yeah.
Beach Cliff. Now, people could go there and then say, well, while we're out spending our husband's money, let's go across the bridge.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Days. Is 7 days in River or 7 days in Lakewood?
Boy, I think it's in Rocky River.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's really not a whole lot of interest to take you over there besides Daystar Boutique, and that's up the road a ways. There's really nothing going on business-wise except for a couple of bars in that area of town.
I know.
And there's some cruddy houses that they didn't show you that are on the dead-end streets that dead-end over into the valley. And those apartment buildings, I've never seen the inside of them, but the outside sure didn't look like they were a luxury palace worth saving like the old Westlake Hotel, which I have been in and was such a complete dump. I don't know how much money they had to put into that place.
I know that. My old...
The pink building.
My old professor, that one, that was a nice one. My old professor lived on Cove Avenue, and there's some nice apartments there on Cove, in and around up on Edgewater Drive and Lake Road. I mean, those are nice. But you get down to the far end of Lakewood, you're right. I mean, they're not worth it, in my opinion. But
it's just like out in Westlake. They were talking about. But it's not an issue in Westlake because it's just open fields. Over there, they're talking about building a downtown Westlake on Crocker Road. And they're going to have places where you can live, apartments, high-end condos, shopping, that sort of... Now, nobody's complaining a peep. The only thing I was concerned was I thought, well, that's kind of like way on the west end of Westlake to be downtown. I thought downtown's the middle of town. That means they should put it in the trailer park right in the middle of Westlake. There's a trailer park in the middle of Westlake.
I know, you're right.
I mean, you think about that, people go, oh, yeah, I live in Westlake. And they come driving up in a beat-up S10, and they're living in a double-wide. They don't even have double-wides there.
Oh, something to LeSabre.
Yeah.
Hey, do you know...
well, that would be kind of cool, actually. But...
Actually, I'm buying my son a 70 LeSabre.
A 70?
Yeah.
That's a big car.
I know. But, you know, if you don't look cool in high school, drive a semi-LeSabre.
You know what?
You can take 12 of your friends comfortably, you know?
That's true. You know, the era that I find that I used to have a 78 Ford, big LTD.
Yeah.
To me, it was nothing because I was in high school in 78. But the kids that were born in 77, 78, they'd come up to me, you know, and they're like 25, 26, and they're like, "Man, is that a cool car?" And I think that maybe, how old's your son? 16?
He's 15. He's 15.
15. Okay, so he was born, do the math, what year?
88.
See, the thing is, though, that there is nothing cool that was made in 88.
No, nothing.
Maybe a Firebird or a Vet or something, but you're not going to buy him that.
No. And the thing about this thing is it's got a little dent by the front driver's side headlight, which is great. So no one's going to steal it. You know, it's not an immaculate thing you're going to polish.
Well, nobody's going to steal it anyway.
Well, but if you polish it up, make it look nice, and then no one's going to want to drive it or be worried about it. So I don't want to have the big car that if he gets in a wreck, he won't get hurt. It's so freaking big. And any damage that's under that car, I don't care about. It's a tank. Remember, 72 LeSabres and Electras are what will be left after Armageddon.
Cockroaches, SARS virus, and 72 LeSabres.
Exactly.
Is it a 350 Buick engine?
No, let's see. It's up from that. It's a V8. It's a super engine. What the hell is that?
455?
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's the only downside is that, well, on the upside, it's a 72, so it's got lower compression, so you can at least run...
It's 70.
Oh, 70. Okay, well, it's a 70. It's going to have like 10 1/4 to 1 compression. That means you got to put high test in it. Premium fuel, I just bought $10 worth yesterday. It only took about 25 seconds to put in because it's $1.82.9. $1.82.9. I paid at a Sunoco station for their Premium 94, and I thought, sheesh, you got to be kidding me. Now I'm driving a car that gets 8 miles to the gallon. Do the math here, because if you don't put super in it, it's going to ping, and it's going to screw up the engine, and it's going to run like a bat out of hell. That car is good for 120 mile an hour. One thing to consider, you know, if it's a 4-barrel, maybe you want to disable the secondaries, that'll at least slow it down a little bit.
I'm thinking about that. One thing, though, is the school is only about 2 miles from his house, so gas, you know, it's not going to take that much. Even though it's going to drive it like crazy, I know, but still.
Yeah, what 16-year-old just drives to school?
Not me.
I mean, I drove
everywhere.
I drove everywhere. When I was 16, well, I started driving when I was 13. Kids, don't try this at home. And I drove to school when I was 13, 14, 15, until I finally got caught by...
You're the lucky one.
Officer Dale pulled me over, and I was driving up a side street in Fairview, which no longer exists. I was driving a 49 Plymouth in the mid-'70s, so it kind of stuck out.
Yeah, you did.
And there were a bunch of kids playing in the middle of the street, and there's Officer Dale and the brand-new 75 Buick LeSabre 455 cop cars they had out in Fairview. And he's on the one side of a group of kids playing in the street, and I'm on the other. And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. Pulled up to a gas station, and he came up to me, and he says, "Can I see your license?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Why?" I said, "I don't have one." He said, "Why don't you have one?" I said, "'Cause I'm 15. And he said, "Get in the car, son." And I had to go to juvenile court at 22nd, East 22nd downtown there, and then they.
Hey, how many blacks and whites were there? Was it silver support following that?
I didn't pay any attention. I just wanted my license, and then they said, now after I'd been driving since I was 13, now they're saying you can't get your license until you're 16 and a half. Now, try driving when you're a kid and then have them take it away, your ability.
Oh, man.
And I didn't want to get caught twice, so here I am living in Fairview and taking auto mechanics at Lakewood and vocational in the afternoon and riding the bus. Oh, God, I hate riding the bus. Unbelievable. And then I missed my driver's ed class, so I had to go to one of them Sears or some driving school.
Yeah.
And I got in the car, and the guy goes, "Well, you know how to drive. Just drive around for a while." So I drove around for a while, and he, okay, and then come pick me up again. "Oh, yeah, you're that kid that knows how to drive. Just drive around for a while." The only thing I didn't know how to do was I didn't know how to, when you left the airport before they changed it all around,
yeah,
probably still that way, but when you left, there were like 3 lanes that all went left at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
I'd never done that before, and I was a little nervous because I thought, well, this is odd. I don't know why I never got stuck in a situation. Well, why would I have ever gone to the airport when I was 13?
The guy took you to the airport, though? You had to drive around the airport?
Yeah, he drove me through the airport.
Jesus.
Nowadays, they'd stop and have dogs sniffing our backsides or something. You know, are you hiding something in there? I think we need a cavity search. But anyway, so, yeah, I had cars that were ungodly fast. I had a 64 Buick Wildcat with a 425 nail head in it I bought from my neighbor for $50. And I used to beat goats with it. I mean, it was fast. And
a friend of mine had a Wildcat, but it had no reverse. So every time he pulled into the parking lot for school, we always piss him off and, like, park behind him and in front of him and around him and stuff, you know?
Because he couldn't back up.
I don't know. It's a beautiful car.
I don't know why it reminded me of a kid I went to school with. Well, he's not a kid anymore. He had about a 72 Mercury Monterey, which is about the size of a 3-bedroom house.
Right, exactly. He's at the Montegos.
He's driving through a parking lot, and it's early morning, and the sun is shining brightly, and we watched him drive across the parking lot at a rather good clip because he was trying to show off. It had a 429 in it, I think. And he smokes the tires a bit and takes off across the parking lot and runs square into a concrete post holding a light pole. The sun got in his eyes, and he couldn't see it. And he went, bam! And we're thinking, what in the hell is he thinking? And the car was completely totaled. The whole front end was pushed in, the radiator's steaming. He didn't get hurt because the thing's so big, but he got out, and I thought, can you imagine how embarrassing that had to be?
Oh, God, yeah.
'Cause it was in front of all the car people, all the car guys. You know, we're all smoking cigarettes in our leather coats before we go to class, and there he goes, bam.
Now, you know, Richard, he cannot go to a class reunion at all.
You know what's funny is I did not see him at the class reunion.
Yeah, he can't. How could you go? That's his, on his head forever, man.
And you know what else is funny? He works in the automobile industry.
There you go.
He repairs cars. So it's okay to work on them. Just don't let them test drive it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had one incident one time. I was across the street to the Brown Derby, and these two cars are coming out of the Days Inn. And they were side by side, all right? Maybe like 10 feet apart.
All right.
One was turning left, and one was turning right. But they weren't stationed that way to get out that way, all right? But they had the blinkers on. One's going to turn left, the other's going to turn right. They didn't know that they both had the blinkers on, all right?
Okay.
Traffic clears, they pull out and run smack dab into each other. Because they were on the opposite side. You know, the blinkers were, if you look at the cars head on,
right,
the blinkers are right next to one another on the other side of the cars. When they pull out, they went around, bam, and I saw it happening. You know, I'm in the parking lot watching it. Oh, my God, they're going to pull out and hit each other because their blinkers are on, like they don't know what they're doing. And they're going to... It was hilarious. The cop shows up, he's scratching his head like, you guys did what?
It's funny. It reminds me of the story of, I mentioned earlier, my 68 Cadillac I used to have.
Oh, man, what color? Sky blue?
White.
Oh.
Big white sedan DeVille.
Oh, man.
And I don't know what, my dad's car was in the shop or something, so I let him drive the Cadillac. So he comes home, and apparently they'd been in an accident. Well, I'm looking at it, and all I see is a little mark on the bumper. That's all I saw. Apparently, they were in a restaurant parked next to a Firebird. They both decided, I guess my father decided he was going to pull out the same time they decided they were going to pull out. And they both went different directions and ran into each other.
Exactly. That's what happened here. Exactly.
And he took the front bumper, apparently, and rode it up this Firebird fender all the way up and down by the door. And I guess this girl was 17, and she's in tears. It's her mother's car, and the front fender's destroyed. And the Cadillac's got a little scratch on the bumper, and that was it. And I says, Pop, what were you doing? He goes, well, I was backing out my way, and she apparently didn't look and backed out her way. And the cop showed up and scratched his head, and he said, you know what? You're both at fault, so I'm not writing either one of you.
Excellent.
Then I took the Cadillac back.
And that's why I want to have the 72 Sabre for my kid, because if he gets in a wreck, the other cars are going to be totaled, and he'll be fine.
It's not green, is it?
No, it's red.
Okay, because I saw a green one driving around town, and... Yeah, well, think of it that way. It's a 72 LeSabre. You don't have to have an emissions test done on it.
Exactly.
The kid
it has the original 8-track tape player still in it.
So the kid could learn a little bit about working on old cars by working on it himself. Everything's big and bulky. The only thing you got to watch for on that is try not to let the kid do a water pump on it himself, because they got little tiny 1/4-inch bolts, and it's an aluminum pump, and the bolts go through aluminum and then into the cast iron block, and there's some sort of a fusion thing going on there, and they always break off, and there's like 18 of them little things to hold on the water pump. If you're going to do well, no, it's not a learning experience. It's a pain in the ass.
No, it's not like you didn't have to learn from experience, did you?
Well, I did learn from experience that something called PB Blaster comes in so handy on old vehicles. It's made right here in Cleveland, and you spray it on, and to do a water pump, you'd spray it on, and then spray it on the next day, and then spray it on the next day. Give it about 3 days for that stuff to soak in, and it'll come apart like butter. Otherwise, you're screwed. John, I got to run.
Richard, pleasure.
All right, nope, the pleasure was all mine. Gee, I missed the weather. Well, it's 60 degrees. Betsy Kling from TV3 says, clearing out tonight, 53 for a low. Tomorrow, cloudy mid-70s, currently 60. And Cliff will let you know in a couple of minutes, perhaps it's gotten colder yet. Bill, you're on the air.
Hi.
Howdy.
I heard you mention the Westlake Hotel a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
And I have an amusing anecdote I'd like to share with you.
It's arable, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Back in the mid-70s, inside the ballroom there, they called the ballroom the Silverthorne Lounge. And they used to have dances there, mixers, on Friday nights for 21 and older. You know, they served alcohol. I was in a teen band at the time, and we played this is during the Summer of Love, 67. And we played there, like every other Friday, maybe all summer. At that time, the way the place was decorated, they had, like Busby Berkeley, 2 descending staircases coming down the end of the ballroom where the dances were, and these were well attended. There was a couple hundred people there every time.
Gotcha.
There's a little bandstand in between the 2 staircases on the ground level.
Got about 2 minutes.
All right. We're playing there, and this, of course, was during the miniskirt days. And all the girls at the dance, they would be standing up these staircases, just standing there watching the band, looking over the crowd.
What an eyeful.
My point exactly. The whole band, we played the whole job with our heads thrown back, looking up the stairs.
It's not even like you needed shoe mirrors or anything.
Exactly. We'd play these dances, and the next day, our girlfriends and our mothers would go, why are you rubbing your neck? We all had, the whole band had stiff necks every time we played there. But I'll never forget that place because of that staircases and the girls standing there, hanging over the stairwell.
Bill, that's a great story.
It was fun, but anyway, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Silverthorne Lounge inside the Westlake. I hope they don't tear that down.
Oh, no, I don't know. I haven't been in it, but I know they restored the outside. And
Good.
I have to assume they restored the inside because the caliber of people that were living there were kind of like hot plate folks.
Yeah.
They'd have their hot plate and their can of beans, and then that was about it.
It may have descended to that, but 35 years ago, it was a jumping place to go for singles dances.
Wow. Hey, before my time, I guess. I mean, 35 years ago, I was 6. But, well, I'll never forget it now.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Nice beaver.
Thank you. I just had it stuffed.
Hello? That was interesting. Well. What do we got left in the program? Oh, about a half an hour. Then you'll get the Drudge Report after the top of the hour news. How's that sound? How's that grab you, Bill? Of course you'll listen right here. You'll keep it right here on the big one. I'm Rick Gilmore, the thinking man's friend. This is Cleveland's only news radio, WTAM 1100.
Rick Gilmore.
Break yourself, fool!
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
What in the hell? That's what I said. Maybe 11th and 12th callers right now. We got 2 left, Ed? Is that right? 11th and 12th callers right now at 578-1111 in the classic 216 area code. Win a 4-pack of movie screening passes to see Bruce Almighty, the new Jim Carrey movie, on Tuesday the 20th of this month at 7:30 at Lowe's Richmond Town Square Theater in Richmond Heights. I should slow down my speech, shouldn't I, Ed? Have those dulcet tones. The only reason I got into talk radio was to be the man that says, poof, there goes perspiration. Or, at the end of a hard day, give me an ice-cold Budweiser. Something like that. But no, everybody that does voiceover work, they're all tight with their supplies. Oh, yeah, I do voiceover work. I got my own company. Really? Can I get some work? Oh, harumph. Work's a little tight right now. Really? Even for these dulcet tones? Jake, you're on the air.
Those stingy bastards.
Yeah, they are, too. They keep all the work to themselves, and they don't want to share it with your old pal Gilly.
If I had it, Rick,